Hello and thanks for joining us for another season of Scope. It's been almost a week now since the burial of late Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare. The overwhelming feeling of loss and sadness, coupled with pride and unity, lingers for millions of Papua New Guineans. Across the country and the world, millions tuned in to witness as the casket of the late Grand Chief was lowered into his tomb at Krea Heights.
Thousands of people descended into the provincial capital of East Sepik over a span of 3 days to welcome and grieve over the death of the late Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare, father of the independent state of Papua New Guinea. The devastating news of his passing came with an overwhelming sadness. The day that PNG's founding father would leave his people did not occur to millions until news of his passing reached the masses. Hundreds and hundreds of condolence messages, expressions of sadness, stories of encounters for the Somare family and of the late Grand Chief poured out from every corner of Papua New Guinea.
As we symbolically farewelled Sir Michael last night from Port Moresby, this morning lifted off at Port Moresby, Jackson's airport, today officially touching down at Wewak. I would like now to represent the rest of the country. We hand over the body officially in person to the East Sepik Provincial Government, the Honourable Alan Bird. Responsibility has now been passed to you. Thank you very much.
The sounds of weeping can be heard in the background as the late Grand Chief's people gather in numbers at Boram Airport to welcome him. Papua New Guineans, including leaders and ordinary citizens from around the country, flocked into Wewak town to join the people of Sepik to mourn and celebrate the life of their great son. Rightly known as the father of the nation, the late Grand Chief was described by Australia's Foreign Minister Maurice Payne as the architect that smoothly and peacefully led PNG in its transition from being under colonial administration to being an independent and sovereign state. Minister Payne said late Sir Michael's gift as a consensus leader has maintained an endearing friendship that Australia shares with PNG and the wider Pacific region. On Monday, March 15th, the casket of the late Grand Chief laid in state at the Provincial Assembly. Provincial and district leaders from both East and West Sepik paid tribute to him. Calls were made for a unified Greater Sepik region, and with the late Grand Chief now gone, it was even more incumbent on the leaders to carry his legacy forward. East Sepik Governor Alan Bird challenged each one of them to work towards a much more Greater Sepik and for economic independence.
Na you mi hoga the line now you mi sa paitim bros lo nem lo displaman now slip lo here. By me make him one name. How by you mi look lo displo not lo pigini ol kam lo look sabe long him. I'm like him, economic independence. 2017, time me come inside, me sabe lo tintim lo disla lapun man. Me talk him you mi hold him strong cacao, hold him strong vanilla, I'm straight. Now you mi sinan lo here. ECP largest producer of cacao inside this country. You must lead. Politics here, you may lead enough. You may need to lead the economy. Ask him lo papaya. Walk blow, you may lo turn him this place, ask him come up something true. Talk, pisin enough. Walk him something.
Late Sir Michael's casket was brought back to the Somare Stadium, where citizens held vigil until the break of dawn. Visitors representing various provinces had the opportunity to carry out customary obligations and ceremonies to honor the late Grand Chief. On Tuesday morning, Sir John Cardinal Ribat led the Eucharistic Mass in celebration of the life of late Sir Michael Somare. The Mass was brief. The time to take him to his burial place was fast approaching. The nation would hold its breath and see this great man be finally laid to rest.
God, Papa, beginning belong you, Jesus Christ, he been given me pala. This plus sacrament belong body now, blood belong him. Kai belong strong in me pla, all line, he walk about yet, long road, he go long kingdom belong you. This plus Santo Misa, he can help him. Brother belong me pla. Sir Michael Thomas Somare, long come up, long big pla kai, belong Christ, he stop all time. Me pla pray long name belong Christ, and me big pela belong me pela.
When giving his eulogy, Dr. Delciana Somare Brush spoke to her father's people of how she and her brothers and sisters had been raised. True, they had been born into a life of privilege, but they had always been taught by their father to never turn their backs to anyone of any status. They had always been taught their culture and customs. She described in Tokpisin that what he and Lady Veronica continued to instill in them from childhood and into adulthood, they must carry on.
Me plano ko school na narblahap na lusting tilo tok pisin na tok place na pasin na custom. Papa lusi plan di something one time me pla. Santi block ground me pla ken kandem. Ta so pasin embak sim go ante mem. How ba yumi game look sawe. Na how ba yumi strong im desla pasin. Na ba yumi stop na yumi olim strong. Holiday mi plano sa golo round lo overseas Thomas. Mi plano sa Kalawia. Mama sa kara mi plano kalo place. Mi plano sa wasos lo borom lo nambis. Tumuna kayap sta lo borom. Tumuna somaray tu plano si mi plano long time. So mi plano sa we Thomas lo all. Ta sa lo kambeken lo place na lo papa lo kerap lo big morning ye tolman sa parap lo gate. Big morning lo kam lo gi papa. Lo lili fiber house lo tu plano la NBC. Desla pasin em karemi kam 26 February em pasi aiblam.
Mrs. Somare Brush said the overwhelming support in cash and kind and the displays of customary ceremonies done in respect for the late Grand Chief could never be repaid. Her family remain indebted especially to the people of Sepik, who have always held late Sir Michael in the highest regard, supporting his political career for close to 50 years.
Me plano pigini plo Sir Michael, me plano na plo sting tilo desla. Big pla dinao, stop lo you pla all people plo isi big. Me plano na plo sting tilo desla.
And so the slow drive to the burial site begins. Hundreds lined the street up to Kriya Heights, calling out goodbyes, choking back tears, waving the PNG and East Sepik flag as the motorcade came by. Cardinal Ribat then made the final blessing.
God ibin sing out him brata belong yumi, Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare, ilusim dis life na igo long em. Olsem na yumi putim body belong em, long ground. Long wanem yumi come up long ground, na yumi imas igo back long ground. Tas all big pla Jesus Christ, ibin kirap long mat, na em I number one man, belong kirap long all I die. Na em by I senesim all body, nothing, belong yumi na by all I come up, nice pala. One kind also body belong em yet. Also na yumi give him brata belong yumi, long God, by God I can kiss him em, I go long place belong malalo. Na kirapim body belong em gen long last day.
The late Grand Chief was finally lowered into his grave. His children came forward to give their last goodbyes. Dignitaries then followed.
Yeah, Sir Peter is tearful. He says bye-bye.
Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare would soon be known as Great Grand Chief, a title only he will carry. He will also be officially named the Founding Father of Papua New Guinea, a title that only he too will be recognized for and no other. The late Grand Chief was born on April 9, 1936. He passed away on February 26, 2021 at the age of 84.
When we come back, a look at the Astrazeneca vaccine that would be made available to Papua New Guinea to counter the spread of the coronavirus in the country. Welcome back to Scope. Good news for Papua New Guinea as the National Department of Health signs off on the Astrazeneca vaccine. According to the National Department of Health, it is one of 2 vaccines granted emergency use listing by the World Health Organization. The elderly and frontline workers are among those prioritized once this vaccine hits PNG shores.
On March 9th, the government of Papua New Guinea signed off on the regulatory approval needed for the COVID-19 vaccine Global Access Facility to bring in the COVID-19 vaccines into PNG. The government had its sights set on the Astrazeneca COVID-19 vaccine.
Papua New Guinea likewise, despite our best of endeavors to try to ensure that we stop it from spreading.
Prime Minister James Marape says the PNG Medical and Scientific Advisory Committee recommended that PNG access the AZ vaccine developed through COVAX facility approved by the World Health Organization. COVID-19 numbers have been on the rise. Authorities have declared there is widespread community transmission. The numbers continue to double since this January. Several parliamentarians are now recovering from COVID-19, including Oro Governor Gary Juffa and Minister for Justice Brian Kramer. Governor Juffa came public with his COVID-19 status on social media in an attempt to educate the public to not take risks and to follow simple measures in protecting the immune system. Member for Madang and Minister for Justice Brian Kramer also came public to say he has been in isolation since testing positive. COVID numbers in the nation's capital have soared, and at a rate at which it is climbing could be well over 2,000 positive cases before the end of this month. And the risk continues to present itself. During this time, when the country is in mourning for the late Grand Chief Sir Michael Somare, city authorities have been emphasizing for city residents to follow COVID-19 prevention measures. The Astrazeneca vaccine is one of 2 vaccines granted emergency use listing by WHO. It has been granted approval for emergency use by stringent regulatory authorities of the United Kingdom, the European Union and Australia. It is currently being used in Europe, the UK and India. The full treatment regimen is 2 doses separated by 8 weeks to 12 weeks time. It is administered by injection in the arm. PNG will receive a total of 588,000 doses of the Astrazeneca vaccine before the end of June 2021 from the first allocation. The vaccine will be shipped to PNG in 2 shipments. The first shipment of 280,000 doses is expected to arrive sometime between the end of March to April, and the second shipment with the remaining 300,000 doses will arrive between May and June of this year. These vaccines will be used to vaccinate healthcare workers and other essential workers that constitute 3% of the total population. Secretary for Health Dr. Osborne Liko said once this phase is completed, they will move to the second phase in the second half of the year, in which the most vulnerable, including older persons, will be vaccinated. Dr. Liko stressed that as long as the virus is circulating, everyone remains at risk. He said everyone must understand that the risk is not over yet. According to the situation summary and highlights issued by the Department of Health and WHO, there were 1,670 COVID-19 cases by March 7, 2021. 357 cases, the highest ever recorded, was reported in a single week in Papua New Guinea, with the nation's capital being the highest. 17 provinces in PNG currently have reported positive cases. Relevant authorities have been faced with a serious dilemma, and that is getting residents to follow COVID-19 preventative measures. In the case of NCD, the NCD Provincial Health Authority CEO, Ken Wai, has pled with city residents to adhere to COVID prevention protocols.
Sick, go to nearest facility. All the clinics in the city, maybe walking triaging, by collecting swab.
NCD Governor Powes Parkop has been on the case of citizens not adhering to the prevention protocols. He was particularly concerned for the frontline workers at how the irresponsibility displayed by residents could affect more of them.
COVID real. Case go high.
CEO of the St. John Ambulance, Commissioner Matt Cannon, announced that due to the surge of COVID-19 cases in the city, St. John Ambulance has again opened up the Tarama Aquatic Indoor Complex to carry out swabbing exercises for COVID-19 at no cost.
For being patient with them. There will be times that you have to wait in a queue for testing. It won't happen straight away. There will be a wait, and it's important that you bring some water with you to the testing site. Maybe you might need to bring some food with you to the testing site. So if you are sitting in a queue, you can have some water and stay hydrated.
The Prime Minister has also shown concern for health workers affected by COVID-19 and so has directed they be given the vaccines along with targeted persons over the age of 50 and who have underlying health conditions. He said 70,000 Astrazeneca vaccines will be sourced from India, while the other 200,000 will be sourced through the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Currently, NCD and West Sepik are in Stage 3 as per the situation summary, with large-scale community transmission, with almost all infections locally acquired and not linked to specific groups or locations. Western Province, Madang and Morobe are in Stage 2, with localized community transmission, while Eastern Highlands, Western Highlands and the Autonomous Region of Bougainville are in Stage 1, where cases were imported from other provinces.
Authorities are looking at an isolation strategy as a opposed to a lockdown to contain the spread of the coronavirus. It was announced a few days ago that tighter measures will be put in place to emphasize on COVID-19 preventative measures in public spaces, and that includes wearing of masks and social distancing.
Tomorrow, Monday, 22nd March, the country kicks off 4 weeks of the National Isolation Strategy to contain the surge in COVID-19 cases in the country. On March 16, 2021, the National Control Center reported 128 cases. 53 of them are from the nation's capital. This increased the total number of cases to 2,479. Community transmission had been on the rise since Papua New Guinea welcomed the new year, and it continues to worsen. While announcing there would be an isolation strategy, Prime Minister James Marape said the strategy will allow business and government services to continue.
We're now in red stage in our country, meaning that community transmission has taken place. It's broken loose. We need to contain, we need to identify and contain it from further spreading, and we need to manage. And I would like to appeal to our provincial health authorities throughout our country. The National Coordinating Center here will make contact with you tomorrow. We've had enough lead time, 1 year, for the provincial response to be prepared. In as far as what they've been doing from national government, we've transferred money to the districts and to the provinces for them to have their provincial and district response set up.
On Wednesday, 17th March, National Pandemic Controller David Manning outlined briefly what the isolation strategy entailed, and it included bringing the Term 1 school holidays forward for elementary, primary and secondary school students.
The proposal is to bring the lockdown, the shutdowns of schools forward to the 22nd. He has indicated that will be very much the case. Again, we've given him today to see how best he can manage that going into the new week. So we're trying out, all efforts being done to make sure that this transition from what we have now to what will occur commencing on Monday the transition is done with relative ease and minimal inconvenience to everyone.
While school children are at home, businesses and government services continue, but with stricter measures to be imposed on domestic and international travel, especially to Cairns, Australia, which has already been implemented.
The Australian authorities, again, we're working with them to accommodate the restrictions there, along with the cancellation or suspension of fly-in, fly-out arrangements. There is, however, limited seating on flights from Port Moresby to Brisbane. Again, that is subject to be reviewed, but as we understand it from our Australian colleagues, that is very much part of the control measures which they've put in place to best mitigate any further exposure to COVID-19 exported, if you like, from Papua New Guinea.
According to the Joint Situation Summary Report issued by the Department of Health and partners including the World Health Organization, the National Capital District and West Sepik Province are in Stage 3 alert, which is large-scale community transmission with almost all infections locally acquired. The National Capital District Commission has launched its COVID-19 awareness and enforcement initiative, where the general public in the city adhered to strict COVID-19 protocols in hand sanitizing, social distancing, wearing masks and self-isolation. NCD Governor Paul Sparkop said he was not in favor of a lockdown. While they await specific provincial health authorities to send in their COVID-19 surge plans, the national isolation strategy will run for 4 weeks, and following that, a similar operation will run for another 3 weeks.
The 4 weeks is phase 1, and then there's a phase 2, which is 3 weeks after that, just to give us an assessment on how we've fared during that initial phase 1. And then we'll see. We'll come back again and see what we can do. Closing off that 3 week, that second phase 3 week period, and then seeing whether or not we need to advise government or recommend to government any additional strategies after that. There is a proposal or recommendation to call out the discipline forces once again. to work, of course, closely with our Council of Churches, our community health workers, again to assist with the rollout of our isolation strategy. We've learned a lot of lessons from last year during the state of emergency as to what worked for us as a people, as a country, and what didn't. So we're very mindful that our efforts going forward to guarantee a greater degree of success in what we're doing in protecting ourselves and ensuring this country continues to survive this pandemic.
Among the new measures issued on Thursday, March 18, the 12th measure relates to vaccination, testing and trials. Australia has recently stepped in again to assist PNG in its request of a comprehensive support package. This package is the earliest supply of 8,000 Astrazeneca vaccines from Australia's stock to health workers, especially in the nation's capital. Australia is concerned because an outbreak in PNG carries risks to their country, especially with travellers. A group of health specialists called the AUSMAT will be sent to Port Moresby and assist health authorities on infection control, triage and emergency management and public health measures. Australia is also providing PPE support to the St. John Ambulance, funding support for reopening of the Rita Flynn testing and isolation facility and clinical care capacity. This new support is in addition to $144 million given to PNG over the period of 2020 to 2021 and 2022 to 2023. At the moment, COVID-19 vaccine side effects is not a concern. The Prime Minister has publicly volunteered to test it when it arrives in PNG.
We're not reckless here. Our own medical doctors in our own country doing research, our own medical and scientific team that know are also doing clearance on what sort of vaccines will come in. And, if a country is uncertain on what sort of vaccine, and if our own medical doctors give clearance, I'm willing to be the first person to be vaccinated, and you could see me as a guinea pig. And if I survive one after vaccination, then the country can look and see. So I'm willing to be the first guinea pig, if I put it this way.
After the break, Missima Island checks off on infrastructure priorities, including an airport, so that locals do not risk being attacked by sea pirates. Welcome back to Scope. Samarai Murua in the Milne Bay province is one of PNG's most difficult districts to administer given its geographical location. For the scattered island district, government services has been a dream for a majority of the people. Recently, a drive has been undertaken to begin infrastructure projects in key townships within the Maritime District, with the anticipation of resource projects set to create an economic boom.
For more than 15 years, the district has seen a decline in basic government services. The district headquarters on Misima Island, which once was the center of a mining project, has seen key infrastructure projects deteriorate since their development during the Missima mine era. With the likelihood of the Missima mine reopening as exploration works pick up, the need for government services is vital. Like most of the major islands in the district, it is a logistical nightmare and an expensive one to bring services to Missima, which hosts a population of over 19,000 people. Despite these setbacks, Samarai Murua MP and Minister for Tourism, Arts and Culture, E.C. Henry Leonard, has now begun the massive task of rehabilitating forgotten infrastructure. Recently, work on the Missima Road project began, funded through a 5 million kina grant by the national government.
And I'd like to thank the Marape Brazil government who have been granted us through the Road Connect PNG program. We were given a 5 million subsidy or grant from the national government for the Missima Ring Road project. The contractor starts now not only to do the road and to do the bridges, but now to engineer a proper drainage system for the roads. That is important. And logistics is nightmare. That's a huge daunting task to provide logistics. But we are very fortunate that we are given a contractor, and with the arrangement with the contractor and the district, we're able to charter that barge and to have those services and everything else delivered to Missima.
2 key bridges in Missima will also be rehabilitated, providing the much-needed link between the island communities. The Kakama Bridge, which opens up the north coast of the island, and the Astrazeneca Bridge, which services the south, will get a facelift through a 1 million kina government grant.
We've already secured some bridge parts through the Works program. The Works Minister, I thank him, Honorable Michael Nally, for considering our request, and they will provide us bridge parts for the Kakama Bridge and the Astrazeneca Bridge. Those are the 2 major bridges that we need to construct new bridges. The old ones were built by the mines, and they've actually deteriorated very badly. So we need to remove them and construct the new ones.
In January, the only commercial flight services to the town were suspended due to the poor runway conditions at the Missima airport. Despite a 5 million kina grant committed by the government, the release of the funding has been slow. The main area of concern includes a permanent runway and proper drainage.
We just need to do a slight, grade and roll, and then we concrete it. The major work will be done, will be consumed by the, the drainage system. I will approach the minister, the current minister, Honorable Seki, to allow for my request that they consider Misima Airport in the current program. And that is causing a lot of anxiety. My district is so fortunate that we have some important and very key economic projects, not only to the district but to the entire country. And these are gold mine projects.
In December 2020, work on the township's water supply began after more than a decade of neglect. With the improvement, there's been a 24-hour water supply system in place. The rollout will begin with the Misima secondary and then the main township and villages.
Last year, December, I managed to provide funding, and I sent some of our officers into Waratau to purchase all the water piping system for the upgrade of our 2 dams that provide more fresh water to the township of Baga and the surrounding villages. So we've already purchased those water piping systems. And the contractor with his boys are now currently working on improving the water supply system. They're pulling pipes from the dam to the Misima Secondary High School water tank, reservoir tanks. So hopefully by mid of this month, Misima High School will have a 24-hour fresh water supply. We will also connect the town supply to that water supply system. So we will all together have a 24-hour supply of fresh water in the town area. And at the same time, we will connect to those other surrounding villages next to the town to have fresh water too. And yes, water has been an ongoing issue for far too long. And when I came into office, I said, no, we will now lay to rest that challenge.
Over the last decade, the Missima Secondary School has seen an increase in student numbers. This now requires new infrastructure to complement its rising school population. A 2 million kina grant will make this a reality.
We need to build 2 double-story dormitories, one for the male and one for the female students. Then we will have to expand the messing hall facility. We need to extend it because of the increased number of students. So we need to extend that and build 1 more additional teachers' house at the school. Our school also was built by the mines through the Missima Mining Development Agreement, and on the part of the national government, they built Missima High School. Up until now, that infrastructure, the Missima High School infrastructure, buildings were left to waste. and they deteriorated very, very badly. So it is very opportune time that we must now intervene.
172 kilometers away from Misima Island lies Murua, or commonly known as Woodluck Island. The isolated island, having a population of an estimated 6,000 people, is on the verge of experiencing an economic boom, with the Woodluck mine expected to be commissioned in the third quarter of 2022. With this in mind, a 36 million kina ring road project is being proposed. With the support of Woodluck mine operator Geo-Pacific Resources Limited, the design, concept and cost of the proposed ring road has been submitted to the Department of National Planning.
It would cost us about around 36 million to do a ring road around the island, and that is important. If we do a ring road, we will now include those villages that are along the northern side of the island, and also those on the other side towards the western end and also the eastern end. So if that happens, people will now be relocated, and at the same time the road will not be safe for public to commute to use. Documentation is complete. I've signed that and forwarded to the National Planning for them to view and help me source funding to construct the new road.
Plans are also in place to redevelop the Guasopa airstrip, a critical port to complement the Woodluck mine project.
We will also upgrade the Woodluck airport too, because the mine is coming on. We need to have the airport up and running, so that we can provide that support to the mining project through air transport.
The current and proposed infrastructure developments are seen as vital to the growth and prosperity of the Samarai Murua district. Samarai Murua MP E.C. Henry Leonard says he is committed to make this a reality.
That ends this episode of Scope, a kind reminder to apply simple measures to prevent the transmission of the coronavirus. Regularly wash your hands with soap and water, cough or sneeze into your elbow, and exercise social distancing. If you are feeling sick, please stay at home. You can also call the COVID-19 hotline number for more information or assistance. Thanks for your company. Good night.